Everyone who has recently played Skyblock over the past few months will know a lot of the best reforges for certain items. This can be the Gilded Reforge on a Midas Sword, or Fabled on practically any other weapon. But what about some of the reforges like Cubic, or Undead, or Suspicious? Well, that's what I'll be covering in today's video, to see whether some of the more niche, not as popular reforge stones are worth it, or if they're just a complete waste of your money. But before we go any further, I'd like to quickly mention that if you have any further questions or comments about this video, be sure to tune into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. We tend to have a lot of open discussions over there, so I highly recommend checking it out. With that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Alrighty, so I'm at the Catacombs entrance here with the blacksmith right in front of me, and in my inventory, if I open it up, you can see that I've got a bunch of different reforged stones that I've collected just before I started recording here. I've also got a diver's helmet and then an adaptive chestplate, which I will get to later on in the video, along with a crooked artifact, just a random accessory that I have, and a bow as well, and also my weapons too. So I'm going to be comparing a couple of these reforges to some other common reforges or things that you may use in sort of day-to-day Skyblock to see whether or not any of these reforged stones are actually useless. And I've sort of picked these out specifically because they're the ones that people don't really talk about, people don't really use as much. I just want to cover the more niche ones, so not your average Dragon Claw, or your Dragon Horn, your Midas Jewel, etc. Because those are the reforges that everybody knows about that are really, really good because they're very expensive. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. The first reforge that I do want to cover here is the Ridiculous Reforge. So if I just grab the red nose, and this is only applicable on a helmet, hence red nose, because it goes on the helmet. So that's why I've got a diver's helmet here. The reason for divers is because it's a legendary helmet, so we'll have the same boosts as like a superior armor set or any other legendary armor set, but you could put this maybe on an epic and the stats will be a little bit different. But if you just look over here, you can see that we get a plus 5% crit chance, and we also get some health and defense, so plus 35, plus 35 there. So already you can sort of compare this to, I guess, a mix of clean and Titanic. So Titanic gives you the 35 HP and defense, but then the extra crit chance is something that like clean offers, and a bunch of other reforges do offer crit chance as well. So it's a bit of a blend of a couple of them, and it's not as good because it doesn't really do much other than just the health and defense. Crit chance is good and all, but you do want to have crit damage and other things like that. But what's really important is if you look at the ridiculous bonus here, it literally says fart when you sneak, reduces your crit chance by 20% for 20 seconds, but grants plus 30 defense for 5 seconds and plus 50 mana. And it also requires 20% crit chance to activate. So this is a very interesting reforge because you're basically giving up a little bit of your crit chance to give you more defense and more mana. Now, what this does is essentially just gives you more time to tank damage or whatever, and it also gives you maybe that extra bit of mana so you could get some ornates off or some kind of healing, or I'm not too sure what it is, but regardless, you get a little bit of mana in return, which I don't really see the point of. Like, maybe if it gave you a lot of health or a lot of defense to like really tank it out, it might be worth going for, but because it does cost 150,000 coins to apply, I would definitely just not say it's worth it at all, because you can just go like Fierce, or you can even go with another reforge that we'll be covering later on in the video, and it will give you either the same benefits or even better than what you could get for this reforge stone. Now, the next reforge stone I want to cover is the Molten Cube. So the Molten Cube will apply the Cubic Reforge, and if I once again put this on the diver's helmet, you can see that we get plus 12 strength, and then we get plus 20 health. So already, you get hardly anything from this. You do get a Cubic bonus though, which does decrease the damage taken from nether mobs by 2%. However, this bonus is relatively useless, because if you think about it, you're really not going to be in the nether that much, or at least as a mid to end game player, or really any player at all shouldn't be in the nether that often. So realistically, that's a pretty much useless perk. As for the strength and the health, however, it's literally just like a lesser version of the pure or the mythic reforge, or maybe even other reforges that offer the same things. You can get things like pure, which will give you a whole bunch more health, defense, attack speed, crit chance, and everything else that's way more valuable to you. So cubic, definitely do not recommend, not worth it at all. It's basically free, this reforge stone. They're so common nowadays, and people just don't want them. So now that we talked about the cubic reforge, how about we move on to the next one? Okay, so third reforge stone here is going to be the Premium Flesh, which offers the Undead Reforge. Now, Undead is actually a pretty decent one. I was quite surprised when I had to look at the stats to see how comparable it is to other things. You can see that it gives you the plus 25 health and defense, which is 10 less than the Ridiculous Reforge, and also 10 less than something like the Titanic Reforge. It also offers you a little bit of strength and a little bit of attack speed, which can be quite nice because extra strength and extra attack speed does equal to more damage. However, if you are going for damage, I definitely recommend getting Fierce, as Fierce will give you you way more crit chance, crit damage, stuff like that, and whatever. And if you want the health or the defense, then I don't really see the point of going for the undead Reforge, because you can just get something like Titanic, which gives you that health and defense, and well, I guess the perk that you get as an added bonus with this, where it decreases your damage taken by all these undead mobs, being the zombies, withers, skeletons, and zombie pigmen, isn't that useful, because you could just go for something that gives you way more health and defense, and that'll already reduce damage to everything. And realistically, if you're able to soak up more damage from all mobs and not just undead ones, you're already going to be better off with a better Reforge. Next up here is going to be the Stone Geo. Now this is a Reforge that I found very interesting when I had a look at this to see if it compares to anything else, and I would actually use this on something like a young set, which I'll get to in a little bit. But if you have a look at the stat boost that this Reforge offers, it gives you plus 10 strength, it gives you a little bit of a bonus attack speed, but it also gives you plus 3 speed, and if you look way down the bottom here for the warped bonus, you also get plus 5 speed for 5 seconds. Now if you didn't know here, the light Reforge actually gives you, I think, 2 more speed than the warped Reforge does, but it doesn't give you as much attack speed. It gives you 1% less attack speed than Warped does, and Warped having that bonus with the plus 5 speed for 5 seconds will already get you more speed than the Light Reforge can. So overall, this is just like a more enhanced version of the Light Reforge from what I have in mind. So if you want to be like farming wood, or even farming zealots, or anything that requires speed, and you want to get just that extra little bit more speed, you could definitely go for the Warped one, as that's what it's more focused for. I would recommend this if you want to go for it. It is a little bit pricey to put on all your armor pieces, with like a total of 400,000 coins spent if you put it on every single one. So now that we've covered the Warped Reforge, how about we talk about the Loving Reforge now, and I'll get to that right now. So now for the red scarf here, you can see that this one's only applicable to chest plates, and this one's actually most commonly put on adaptive chest plates or any other kind of dungeon chest plate, mainly for the loving bonus at the bottom, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So if you look here at the health and the defense, giving you just a little bit more health, a little bit more defense, but 80 intelligence, this is actually really solid. It gives you, I think, 20 less intelligence than wise, and then about 60 intelligence less than necrotic, or I think it's around 80 less intelligence, something like that. It does give you less intelligence than wise and necrotic, but what you do get in return is the bonus, giving you the 5% increased ability damage, and this is why so many people use it, because when you pair the Loving Reforge with any other necrotic pieces, so like 3/4 necrotic, and then you have Loving on your chest plate, that will already get you a lot of mana, and you'll have plenty of intelligence to go around in dungeons or whatever it may be, and having that added ability damage bonus is super useful on a chest plate as a mage, because you're able to do a ton of damage with that, as it does stack up over time, and I definitely recommend going for this Reforged Stone, also considering the fact that it's only about 200k off the auction house, and only 300k to apply to the chest plate itself. So next up here we have the Reinforced Reforge. Now this one is one that I definitely recommend, and I did hint at towards the beginning of the video. Reinforced is a very good Reforge, because essentially it gives you the plus 80 defense that you would get from the heavy Reforge, but it doesn't give you the added negative buffs, which is the minus crit damage and the minus speed. So if you don't want those negative debuffs, you can just get yourself a rare diamond, which is like 9k off the auction. I think at the maximum it'll be around 15 to 20k coins. You can apply that to whatever armor you want. I've actually got this on my adaptive chestplate here because I wanted that added defense, and you'll already be more tanky than before. It's a very good substitute to the Perfect Reforge, as the Perfect Reforge is very expensive, as you guys may know. It's like 1.5 mil for the Reforged Stone, and then even more to add it to your armor. And being such a cheap Reforge with maybe a total cost of about 60 to 70k coins to add it on, I highly recommend you go for it, as it's really good if you want to play tank, or you just want that added defense to whatever armor set it may be. So rare diamond is a big thumbs up from me. Definitely go for that if you ever need it. Alright, so now that we've moved on from the armor reforges, we're going to move on to the accessories now. So we've got two of them for this video. The first one being the Bloody Reforge, and as you can see here, you get +1 strength, you get +5% crit damage, and then you get some bonus attack speed and normal speed. Now, I did a little bit of research on this, and I saw that it was most comparable to the Godly Reforge. Now, most of you will know that Godly and Zealous have both become more obsolete, as they're not as strong as they used to be, Forceful and Hurtful being more solid options. However, this isn't too bad of an option. It is pretty cheap to get yourself one of these Reforged Stones, and applying it to the entire bag at least to my entire bag without one accessory, is only 33k coins, which is really solid in my opinion. It's a very cheap reforge and can be decent. Now, I wouldn't recommend this because I would go for something like Forceful, or maybe even putting some Strong on some legendary and epic talismans, as those are some of the best reforges in the game right now. But you can also go for things like Strange if you really want to get that extra attack speed, as Bloody doesn't really offer too much of that anyways. But it's still a decent option, I guess, just throwing that out there. It does exist, it's sort of mediocre. So now that we talked about the Bloody reforge, we'll move on to Silky, being the other talisman reforge, and it's actually really solid, so we'll get to that right now. So moving on to the Luxurious Spool, you can see that this applies the Silky reforge, and all that Silky does, it gives you the extra crit damage. Now, Silky is actually a really good reforge because it can give you the most amount of crit damage out of any other reforge in the game currently, and that can be really useful and very situational for things like Sven's if you're doing them in Mastiff and Pooch, as crit damage is what buffs your Mastiff armor and also buffs the Pooch sword. So if you do want to apply the Silky reforge to your entire talisman bag, not only does it cost less than 11,000 coins, but it's also really good. It's actually cheap to buy as well. The spool itself only ever goes for, I think, 400,000 coins tops, but this is definitely a very good reforge stone that I highly recommend you get your hands on if you are playing either Archer, Tank, or Berserker. So moving on to the final two reforge stones, we have one for sword and one for a bow. So the first one here is going to be the Suspicious Vial, and this will give you the Suspicious reforge on a sword. Now this one's actually pretty interesting because if you look closely, you get an extra bit of crit chance and you get 85% crit damage. Now this is really good. This is actually comparable to Sharp, which I do have on my sword currently, giving me that plus 75% crit damage, so you get percent more on Suspicious, but it does give you a lot less crit chance, being only 7% versus 20, so there's a 30% discrepancy there. However, you do get that Suspicious bonus at the bottom there, saying that it increases your weapon damage by 15. Now this is really good because it's not a percentage or anything at all. Weapon damage is very valuable as it does stack up really well and does a lot of damage. However, I don't recommend going for this reforge at all because not having that extra crit chance isn't useful, and you can go for something like Fabled, which gives you that extra bonus damage as well. It's more of an RNG type reforge because it does cause your damage to fluctuate between different numbers, but Fabled is definitely a much better option if you are going to go for a reforge stone. And considering the fact that this reforge stone is literally 1,000,000 coins to apply onto a legendary sword, I would not recommend this whatsoever because it's way too pricey. Fabled is the same price, except the reforge stone is a little bit more expensive, and it's definitely much stronger. So Suspicious is a thumbs down from me. Definitely not worth your coins. I don't see the point of it, although it is still kind of solid, I guess, although I'd still go with something like Sharp. Now lastly, we get the Bow reforge, and this is going to be the Precise reforge. So Precise is actually a really good reforge once again. Now this is one that I use myself. I use it on my Renan's bow and on my Magma bow, but the reason why I like Precise so much is that these stats are actually comparable to Unreal. So Unreal will give you the exact same buffs to your strength, crit chance, and crit damage. This is what the stats look like on a legendary bow, giving you that extra bit more strength, crit chance, and crit damage. But the reason why Precise is such a good reforge is for that last perk at the bottom, where you deal 10% extra damage when arrows hit the head of a mob. So essentially, what you're getting is a headshot multiplier. Like, this is really handy when you're playing Archer in dungeons or literally anywhere else. Having that extra headshot bonus can stack up a lot over time and is really handy. And because the stats are literally the exact same to an Unreal reforge with just that added headshot bonus, there is no reason not to, because it's just so good. This is comparable to the Spiritual reforge. However, I don't think Spiritual is as good because it's way more expensive to get the reforge stone, and it's really only useful inside of dungeons. So Precise, definitely a thumbs up from me. This reforge stone is really good. But with all of that being said, guys, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel because I make these Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. And also, like I said at the beginning, if you do have any further questions or comments about this video, or you want some more clarification on all these reforged stones in my inventory, be sure to pop into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. But that's going to be it for me today. And as always, take care and peace.
Jerry sucked me off in the back of the dark arc.
What?
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 What?